Hey there, Nick Jatakis here. In this video, we're going to go over what it was like to go to Docker's very first Docker Captain Summit, which took place in Lisbon, Portugal. So about 40 captains and quite a few Docker employees showed up, and we had an amazing time here. So this video is going to be my personal experience of the trip to hopefully give you a feel for the event. You know, it may give some insight on some of the things we get to do as Docker captains. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. If not, don't worry, next week is going to be more some type of technical post. But yeah, as for being a Docker captain, it's not just about writing blog posts or making videos or being in a shared Slack channel. You know, we have all sorts of different interesting opportunities to have some life-changing events, such as this trip to Lisbon, Portugal here for the Docker Captain Summit. So before anything, I just want to give Docker a major shout out here for putting this event together. It really was something epic here. But for me, it started with scrambling to get a passport because I woke up, saw the invite to the event sitting in my inbox, and funny enough, this event landed on my birthday here. But yeah, the event was set for June 9th, which really isn't that far away from the end of April here. And yeah, we were going to Lisbon, Portugal. So instead of overthinking things like I normally do, you know, I eternally agreed that, you know what, as long as I'm actually invited to this event, I'm going to go to it, and that decision was made in seconds here. I think that's a way more healthy way of operating versus thinking about a million what ifs, right, on how things can go wrong or second guessing myself. It's also interesting how the brain works, at least for me. You know, as soon as I accepted that I was going, there was really nothing to stress about. You know, I immediately went into problem solving mode to figure out how to make all of this work here, and now suddenly it shifts to being a fun adventure or a challenge or something that's really enjoyable to do. So step one was getting a passport because I actually never left the US before. So with only about 6 weeks left, you know, I remembered hearing all these different horror stories about, oh man, it's going to take like 3 months or 6 months to get a passport. But I didn't let that get me down, right? This is definitely a rabbit hole I could have went down to be like, oh, well, you know, I'm not going to be able to get my passport. Might as well just give up. No, super easy to solve this one. So the next morning I went to my local post office and just asked them what the process, you know, looked like here. So basically, you fill out a form, provide your original birth certificate, the one from the state here with the seal, not the one from the hospital, by the way. And, you know, you either supply them a picture that you can take somewhere, or they take a picture of you on the spot, at least at the local post office near me here. That's what I ended up doing in the end. But in New York, you know, they said it's going to take about 5 to 8 weeks, but I could get it expedited to get it in about 2 or 3. And they also explicitly mentioned that when it comes to the 2 or 3 weeks, you know, we still need to account for travel time of the mail itself, right? That's the time it takes when the state actually receives the request and accepts it. You know, we had to account for the time it takes to mail it into the main state area and then mail them back to me, which could be another couple of days here. So, you know, they kind of gave me an all-in ballpark figure here of about a month, and they were quite confident that I would receive it by the end of May, which is, you know, about a week and a half, let's say, before the trip actually took place here. So we went for the expedited approach. Now, I did Google around, you know, just as a potential fallback plan. I could actually go into New York City directly and get it the same day, but that wasn't necessary, so I didn't really get into the details of what that would look like. But at least it's good to know it exists there, because it was funny in my mind when I was thinking about this. I'm like, really, like, what if someone who had like $50 billion or something like that really needed a passport? Like, is it really going to take 2 or 3 weeks? Like, there has to be a way to get it like same day potentially. But yeah, that exists there as an option potentially. Maybe in other states, I'm not too sure here. Now, in the end, it did cost $242 here. And the only reason I included that here is because, you know, it's $130 for the passport, $60 to get it expedited. But then there was like this application processing fee and also providing the photo as well. You know, I didn't really realize that was going to be added on until the very end here. Not a big deal. I mean, it lasts for 10 years, unlocked traveling the world, or most of it, I should say. So totally well worth it there. And I must say the turnaround time actually was pretty quick. So I scheduled an appointment with them to take my photo and process everything here the next day. So I grabbed 2 of the forms there, went home, filled them out, came back the next day with all the things, you know, birth certificate, etc., etc. They took my photo in like a minute or 2. The whole process, maybe I was there for like 15, 20 minutes. It really wasn't too bad at all. And the only reason I took 2 applications home there is because there's quite a few different fields that you need to fill out, and you can't cross anything out, so you don't want to make any mistakes. So I figured, you know what, I'll just take the second copy in case I screw up first one. Didn't make any mistakes, but it was kind of nice just to have that backup there as needed. Now, I will say the scary thing is you actually need to mail in your original birth certificate with them, with the form that they all, you know, facilitate from the post office there. And she usually says, you know what, it may actually take an extra month to get that back. So, you know, I kind of half jokingly said like, yeah, the post office is actually pretty good. You know, haven't lost any of my mail yet. You know, hopefully let's continue that streak there. And she kind of joked around saying like, let's not joke around losing mail when it comes to your birth certificate. Agreed. But you know what? It all worked out in the end here. Ended up getting my passport delivered May 8th there, and I got my birth certificate back a couple weeks after that. So it was nice to have both the passport and my birth certificate back even before I went to the trip here. So problem 1 solved. You know, I can actually legally enter Europe now. Now I actually have 1 month to figure out what I want to do. Now, it's kind of funny about this phrase here because, man, I remember I went to the dentist or hygienist. Like, she went to Portugal once, like a year and a half ago. And I was like, oh, cool. So like, how exciting is it going to be to go to South America? And that's the day I learned that Portugal is actually in Europe, not South America. But in my defense, they speak Portuguese there, and Brazil also speaks Portuguese. Man, but I'm from the US. Globally, I need to look at some maps. But yeah, so trip is set up. I've got the passport. Cool, let's go. So now I need to think like, well, is this going to be business, personal, maybe both combined? So the event was technically June 9th and June 11th, and we have some extra travel days, basically the day before and the day after. And the idea here is if you're coming from somewhere like the US, you may want to catch a late night flight on that Saturday, June 8th, basically the day before there, so that you can actually arrive in Lisbon the morning of June 9th, because Lisbon is plus 5 hours from New York here in terms of time zones. So that timeline looked something like this, right? Saturday, travel day in, Sunday, arrival, and then we had a nice little captain's dinner, which we're going to get into details more later that evening there. Then we have both of the event days, and then on the last day, folks are just traveling out whenever they happen to be traveling out. So I actually asked Docker, is it possible to combo a personal trip with the summit event? They said as long as the flight prices were reasonable or incomparable, then it's no problem at all here. I should mention, Docker did cover the airfare and all the nights at a very, very nice Sheraton hotel. More details on that as well. So, I figured like maybe I can just turn this into a 16-day event, right? Basically 2 business weeks, 10 days off there, and then 3 wrapping weekends that all fall together here. My initial idea here is like, okay, let's fly out on the 8th here, this type of thing here, do the entire summit event, and then take about 12 days or so and solo around some of Europe. Now, again, I'm not international traveler here. I haven't really went to too many crazy places on my own here. But given this is my first international travel experience, I didn't really know what to expect. So I figured, maybe there's a couple of different options here. Maybe I can take a flight or a couple high-speed trains to a whole bunch of different places in Europe, maybe just spend a day or 2 in each one. Or maybe I should spend a little bit more time in Portugal, potentially even also like Western Spain there. And I actually ended up going with option 2. I'm going to spare you all the details on the personal trip because this video is probably going to be pretty long. It's, I want to keep it focused to the Dakar event, but I went into hardcore research mode and ultimately landed on this, which is, flying from Lisbon to Sevilla, Spain after the summit event, then stay there for a couple days, take a bus to Lagos, and basically this video or screenshot shows that, I flew to here, basically, took a bus over here, stayed there for a couple days, went back up to Lisbon for a couple days, took a whole bunch of different day trips, and yeah, it actually worked out quite nicely. So if you're spending around 12 days, 2 weeks, give or take, this triangle loop here is really awesome. And I think if you spent a full 2 weeks, like a 16 days, you can even explore like a little bit more of Spain here if you wanted to, or maybe even northern Portugal, if that's something of interest as you. But yeah, the only thing I really pre-booked for that was like the flight to Spain, a couple hotels, got a rough set of bullet points, what I wanted. You can see these little markers on the map here, and then kind of just played it by ear. It all worked out in the end. I'm super happy with how it went. Yeah, highly recommend it here. But it's weird. So, as I was booking this stuff a couple of weeks before the trip, I kept thinking to myself, like, man, I'm just going to wake up and see an email from Docker, and there's going to be like, well, sorry, Nick, you're not really invited anymore. We sent the invite to the wrong person, or maybe the event was canceled or moved or something like that, or postponed. And I don't know, it was some weird type of imposter syndrome, right? Like, why the heck would they want to invite me to something so grand and amazing as this? But yeah, so it actually did happen. The invite didn't get canceled. So now it's actually time to book the plane tickets. So, Docker helped facilitate this one by giving us access to some like flight booking website and a virtual credit card. They asked us to book economy seats here for whatever days make sense, as long as, you're available on June 9th here for the captain's dinner, as well as the full last day of the event here. I ended up going with TAP Air Portugal. They had direct flights both ways, which is quite nice. So that night on Saturday, I flew out of JFK, which is a major international airport in New York, at about 10 p.m., arrived in Lisbon at 10 a.m. the next day. And then on the way back out, after my personal trip, etc., it was flying out from the same airport in Lisbon at 5 p.m., which got me home here in New York around 8 p.m. So the times are actually quite nice, right? Avoided needing to wake up at those crazy hours to get there 3 hours early for an international flight. Another option that I could have taken there was Delta, but the flight home was at 8 a.m., which would have meant getting up to the airport at like 5 a.m., which means leaving my hotel at like 4:30, which means waking up at like 3:45 to get cleaned up, maybe grab something to eat, triple check everything is packed and all that. Like, no. Wasn't super interested in doing that one, especially knowing it was going to be a 7.5 hour flight back. Yeah, this 5 p.m. time was actually awesome. And Spoiler alert, I didn't get any jet lag on the way there or back. I don't know how, but it worked out quite nice here. But yeah, so I had the passport, have the plane tickets or the major ones, preparing for international travel. So, I may make another post around this in general, around checklists and programming. Probably not next week. I'll do something more technical. But yeah, this is an interesting detail, I guess, that makes sense for this story here. So I've never traveled internationally, and phones need to have support for that. And my provider doesn't really offer anything out of the box that, like as part of my inherent plan. So they have this other idea of like a global pass where basically you pay $10 a day or per 24 hours per country that you're in. And now you can have international data and calls and texting and all that stuff here. But another option was to investigate an eSIM, which most modern phones support now. Basically, it's a virtual card that you can put in to get access to the internet. And in this case here, that ended up being like $30 for 12 gigs, and that was valid for 14 days. I even got a European phone number from France with unlimited calls and texting to anywhere in Europe, even a little bit of international calling if I wanted it, which I never used. But yeah, this is through Orange Travel here. This is not an affiliate link, like whatever. It actually worked great the whole trip. And I only bring it up, though, because it was valid for 14 days, but I was going to be out of the US for 16 days. This meant surviving on Wi-Fi for the first couple days of the event. That led to some interesting situations here, but I'm really happy that I went with this. And it was crazy. Out of the 12 gigs, I only used maybe something like 1.5 gigs or like 1.8 gigs or something of all that data. And I was using GPS with Google like a maniac, let's just say. It was basically on when I needed it. I took I don't know. It was interesting. It all worked out great. But yeah, so day one, getting to Lisbon from New York here. So I left my apartment around 5:30 because remember I had a 10 p.m. flight here. It's, quite a little trip there to JFK here, but, I got there about 7 because they say get there 3 hours early for the flight. And, started navigating JFK for the first time because I've never really flew out of there. I've been to more local airports, flying to different areas in the US where it's usually like a hub to BWI and some other stuff or whatever. But yeah, it was okay. Followed the signs, got through security check and all the passport control and all that other stuff. It really only took about 30 minutes there. And yeah, I didn't want to check any luggage for this trip, so I just took 2 backpacks here, packed about 6 pairs of clothes, and also my 9-year-old Chromebook that I modified to run Linux. Made some blog posts around that one in the past here, and also a work laptop for some client work there, which thankfully I never had to turn on. So appreciate that I was not called upon for these things. But yeah, here's the backpacks. This one was filled up to the rim with all sorts of things. This is more like a little day bag here. Second laptop, couple of shirts and stuff went in there. But yeah, my thought process was like, it's interesting. I'm going to be there for 16 days. There's no way I'm going to pack like 16 pairs of clothes. Like that just wouldn't fit in 2 backpacks. Certainly not here. So I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't really matter how long I'm going for. If it's like more than a week or 2 weeks or 10 weeks, like I can just pack something like 6 pairs or 7 pairs, whatever you need here, and then just start doing laundry, right? Maybe I can do laundry in the sink of a hotel, or if the hotel has some type of washing machine there, I can try doing that. So I actually ended up doing both methods. And by the way, spoiler alert, washing clothes in a sink sucks. It took forever to dry, but it actually did work. So if you just have basic things like t-shirts and shorts and, socks, underwear, blah, blah, blah. That stuff actually worked pretty good. If you have a drying rack, you can keep the window open there. Yeah, it actually worked pretty good. And one of the hotels I went in, this is like well after the Docker event, they had a washing machine set up there and that was pretty nice, free to use, whatever, pretty good stuff. But I will say this, TAP Air Portugal has some pretty strict carry-on sizes and weight constraints when it comes to that bag that goes under your seat. So it could only be 4.5 pounds or 4.4 pounds, I should say, and 2 kilograms there. I forget the exact dimensions, but I did put all that stuff in a spreadsheet just to compare to make sure. But it was like, I think like the depth could only be like 6 inches tall or something for the bag. It was pretty small compared to all the other flights there. So yeah, that basically just meant like putting the laptop in that little bag, this one, and then maybe wrapping it in a couple of shirts, some wires there, etc. But in the end, TAP actually didn't even check the dimensions or the weight of the bag. But I gotta say, it did make me feel at ease knowing my bags would be okay if they did spot check them. Now, it's not like they're gonna deny you access to the plane if you go over, but it was some pretty hefty fees there if you had to check your bag at the gate there. Now, this flight was on an Airbus A330neo, which I must say was actually quite nice. Yeah, I'm gonna go into more details here, but man, for me, I just don't like flying at all, but this time around, it was kind of okay. I think this kind of goes back to my original thought process of like just doing it. Don't overthink this stuff. I truly like actually accepted this, and I chose to do this. So it's like, if this needs to be done to achieve what I want to do, like why bother worrying about it, right? This does absolutely no good for anybody. So with TAP, at least with the setup I had, you had the option to choose your seats, but it was a little bit more expensive. We're talking like $80 to $200 more to be able to pick your seat. But, Docker is already being super, super generous with this trip. So I'm like, screw it. You know what? Let's just like roll the dice and see what we get. So there's no extra fee for getting randomly assigned a seat. And I got randomly assigned probably the worst seat on the plane. So here is the exit row, and I was one row behind that one. And there was this big black bulkhead on the floor, and it was taking up like at least a quarter of my leg room. And that was the leg room on the right. So just to give you some context, this plane is set up with a 2-4-2 layout. So there's like 2 on the right wing, 2 on the left wing, 4 seats in the middle. And I was in the aisle seat on the right-hand side here. So I had like no leg room at all under my seat, especially with my little bag there too. It was like going to be, okay, well, that's going to be interesting. And let's just leave it at the person sitting next to me. Yeah, they were like stack overflowing a little bit into my seat as well. But, I said, whatever, I may do with this. I'm going to accept my fate here. It's actually 6.5 hours to fly there because you go with the jet stream. It's a little bit faster, 7.5 hours on the way back here. But I got really lucky. Some good fortune quickly arrived here because the flight wasn't full. And that exit row ahead of me was open by the time we were just starting to roll. So I actually asked the flight attendant if I could move up to that seat, and she said, no problem. It's also very interesting at how perceptive they are with like nonverbal cues. So, when I said that, I kind of shifted my eyes just a little bit when making my request here. And like she immediately understood my whole life here. And I didn't make a scene or say anything rude or like anything crazy like that. It was like super simple. Hi, I noticed the seat ahead of me isn't taken. Once you reach cruising altitude, it would be okay if I moved to it. Yeah, no one got offended. Everybody was happy. I would say we both actually got a pretty decent upgrade there. So this is my first time actually sitting in an exit row. And yeah, I hope to get that one every time. You have unlimited leg room. I comfortably sat literally with like every leg position imaginable and felt like a king. It was like almost first class, at least to me here, or business class or something like that. But yeah, since it was an overnight flight, they served dinner. I picked chicken and vegetables here, and then after cruising altitude and we all ate for a little bit, they started shutting the lights off on the plane here. I couldn't sleep, but I did put a blanket over my head and kind of just closed my eyes for about 4 hours there. I certainly never fell asleep, but it was okay. So I just sat back basically and listened to music for most of the flight. It was really great timing too, because this one really nice song here, I'm not going to like play it on the video here, but it was just really good timing of things when the plane was actually taking off. So I'll leave a link to that one if you want to go and check it out, if you like symphonic deathcore. Cool. So about an hour before landing, they served a sandwich. I don't know, it was reasonable-ish, let's say. By the way, the dinner was actually quite good. But yeah, I don't know if this is that's Airbus A33neo or what it was like, but I was actually feeling surprisingly good and refreshed. I didn't even sleep. I don't know, nothing about flying there like even affected me physically, I guess. Like I remember flying in the past where my ears were messed up for like almost a whole day. Like it took almost until like the next day before I could start hearing normal. But this time around, it was like nothing. Like by the time I landed, my hearing was 100% good. Nothing was clogged. Standard like little ear popping things when you're flying and taking off. And that was it. It was actually quite nice here. Now, I don't want to say anything too crazy yet, but I think my fear of flying might be gone. I'll gladly go anywhere to meet anyone here. And I know I need to relax here because, that was only a 6.5 or 7.5 hour flight. Let's see what happens after 12 or 15. But I kind of feel like 7.5 is like, all right, we might as well go like 10. Like, what's the big difference? 15 is starting to get crazy. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, so arrived in Lisbon. Nice. So this is like day 2 from a human perspective here. But this kind of just continues on right from the flight from yesterday. But now it's actually June 9th. About 10:20 Lisbon time here. Now, getting through passport control was definitely an experience here. The electronic passport reader wasn't working in Lisbon's airport at the time, so yeah, there were some pretty long lines there. It was like over an hour. I didn't leave the airport doors until probably about like 12:30, something like that. And basically all the captains coming in got stuck like this. But this is also where the fun began a little bit. So the airport had Wi-Fi, but I had no active plan, right? Because I didn't want to activate my SIM card for a couple of days here. So I did look up beforehand, though, that I know I needed to take this red line metro from the airport to the Sheraton Hotel, but it was kind of up to us to kind of figure out this transportation since we're all arriving at different times. So originally, Cheatham and I, we were chatting on Slack a little bit before the event. We had this one shared captain's chat for the event, and we're all posting our arrival times at the airport, right? And our flights here happen to be arriving at basically the same time. Originally, I was going to be landing at 10. So we figured, yeah, it would be a great time to just decide to meet up here at the airport and then make our way to the hotel. That will also be, I guess, an interesting thing because she also had no active SIM card available. But yeah, with my flight being a little delayed and that really long passport line, yeah, just we weren't able to get on touch in Slack on the airport. I guess one mistake I made there was not asking for her flight details, because then I could at least monitor the board there. But yeah, in Slack over the airport's Wi-Fi, once I got, out of the plane and kind of like ready to go, I announced I was about to try to find the red line if anyone wants to meet up to be around there. This ended up being kind of funny because I kind of couldn't leave the airport to go to the metro because I had no SIM card, because how am I going to get there, because I don't really know exactly where to go. So I had to send messages like, hey, if anyone wants to meet, I have a black shirt on, a hat, and a couple of backpacks. I'll be in front of the metro outside a minute from now, but I can't read your reply because the Wi-Fi doesn't reach outside the airport. So this kind of reminds me of the old days, right? Of people playing chess like over physical mail. Like a dude sends a move over to Russia from the US, and then 2 weeks later you get to react to that one, something like that. But after doing this messaging thing a couple of times in Slack, did come across a pretty decent sized group of captains who were there. And yeah, it was interesting though, because, I haven't really met anyone before, so I don't really know what they look like. Yes, I've seen their avatars on Slack and, occasionally a face on some Zoom chats here, but it's much different trying to identify somebody in real life, especially when you've only seen them from like the neck up. So I ended up meeting Nirmal, Edith, and Eric, and Edith posted a picture of her luggage saying like she's on the way. So I was literally looking for a piece of like Docker themed luggage pulled by a woman named Edith here. So yeah, she had some nice luggage there. And yeah, we made our way there onto the metro, which is pretty cool. By the way, you didn't even need any special cards or tickets or anything. You can just tap your card or phone right there at the entry gate. You get access right there to the metro. And 25 minutes later, we arrived at the hotel. Now, given I was up from about 6 o'clock in the morning the previous day, and now it's like the middle of the afternoon the next day, checking in and taking a shower felt like a pretty good idea. So yeah, I did that. But I'm not going to take a nap or sleep because I know that's going to mess up my schedule here. Somehow though, I wasn't even tired at all. So that was cool. And I will admit, it took me a lot longer than it should have to figure out how to turn the freaking lights on in the hotel. Yeah, you need to insert your room card into the slot. I guess technically maybe another slot could have worked. I remember chatting with someone about that one. But yeah, the room was awesome, super comfortable. AC was good, bed, etc. But we weren't really there for that long in the hotel room, at least not for me. It was basically just sleep, get out, and then go off and do things here. But yeah, after getting cleaned up, I sent another Slack message out saying, if anybody wants to meet up, let's grab some lunch somewhere. So Stephanie and Edith responded. So we walked around for a bit here. We found a nice little park about 10 minutes from the hotel, and then we just grabbed some lunch at like a kebab/gyro place here. It was pretty good, I must say. And after that, we kind of just walked around Lisbon for a bit, got back to the hotel in time for that captain's dinner, which was 6 p.m. there. That lasts for a couple hours. But man, just like stepping foot in Europe was like super impressive. There was so much history in plain sight. It feels like half the buildings are probably older than the entire US with statues everywhere. I don't know, it felt like such an organic place. There was just like residential like townhouses mixed with like commercial things with like town squares and like cool monuments. Like, I don't know, I don't really see those things around here. And it just felt like being transported literally to a different world here. But yeah, eventually that evening we had the captain's dinner. Basically all of us arrived, I'm pretty sure. There was somebody from, I think, Malaysia that had like something like a crazy 20-hour flight. I think it came late there, but he made it in the end. But yeah, Docker coordinated a very nice dinner for the first travel day. It was on top of the roof of the hotel, but it was enclosed in windows, so it wasn't really windy, which is quite nice. We had a nice little view of Lisbon here. And I will say, Lisbon was very windy. So yeah, it was cool not to be barraged by the wind there. But there was all sorts of different, appetizers and food and drinks. And we kind of just, got a chance to break up into little groups and mingle and see how we all are, meet everybody, etc. And yeah, so, we got some seats here, chatted, did whatever, ate some interesting foods, and it was pretty cool. Very good time. And we all got little goodie bags here that came with a Docker Captain Summit shirt and some pretty sweet name tags. I know it's going to be hard to see on the video here, but Marco here, he decided to amend his name here, and we'll see if that is legally binding in Italy, which is where he lives. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Not so quite, but yeah, you can see he modified his name tag just a little bit. But yeah, some fun. Yeah, but before we left that dinner area, we all took a little group shot here, and it was pretty cool to see all of us come together. And yeah, after that, dinner ended like 8:30. We kind of just hung out in the lobby of the hotel for a bit. Most folks on that day, at least traveling in, probably were up for over 24 hours. So we kind of got an early night there on that first night there. But yeah, got a little bit of sleep for the first real day. I kind of fell asleep around maybe like 11. I remember waking up like at 5:48 a.m. or something like that. But I was actually feeling pretty good. No jet lag at all. And again, yeah, Lisbon is 5 days or 5 hours ahead of New York for reference here. But yeah, here's actually the agenda provided by Docker for the summit. So it's a 2-day summit here. You can see, I'm not going to go through all these line items here, but just give you an idea or an opportunity to glance around this. It was a lot of just like, breakfast, intros, doing some cool things, hack sessions, coffee breaks, like a nice little boat trip for the first day. And then it was like, some presentations and tech talks and more hack days and videos and all sorts of cool stuff that we're going to get into this video here. But yeah, it was pretty action packed for both days here. But I will say, besides, eating, most time slots were in the hotel's conference rooms because eating was in like the buffet area. But I really, really like how this was actually broken up. These days were action packed, but it really never felt tiring or boring. It wasn't like we were just sitting there inside of a presentation room for 8 hours listening to, someone from Docker talk about a specific thing with like zero interaction. Like we had a really long breakfast, from 7 to 9. You can feel free to go whenever you want. You can skip breakfast. It's totally up to you, which was kind of nice there. But yeah, they were very open to live Q&A during all the presentations. We got to learn about new offerings from Docker and also provide a lot of feedback there as well. I would say, in my opinion, it was a near perfect balance of everything. So all the event coordinators from Docker, seriously, this was a great one. So those hack day sessions were my favorite though, because it kind of gave us an opportunity to work together on something Docker related. So there was also an ample amount of time to not feel rushed because you can see there's about two hours here for this, another 2 hours here. So like literally half the day was basically hack day session. And on day 2, we also had quite a lot there as well. So that was actually really nice here. And yeah, speaking of ample time, the days ended early enough to have a lot of fun outside the hotel too. So on that second event day, some of us walked around for like 6 hours after the event because you can see it kind of ends at 5 there. We had the boat trip to 8, the other one, but yeah, a lot of time to do all sorts of different interesting things and kind of just mingle and, have some friendly chats and, walking around Lisbon and seeing the city a little bit. So, I'm not going to be posting a lot of details about the technical presentations here, but, we're going to be covering a number of things from the agenda. So, day 3, which is really like event day 1, this first one over here, kind of starts with breakfast there. And, Cheatham and I decided to meet for breakfast pretty early, basically as soon as it opened around 7 there. Now, she flew from Turkey, which by the way is a new name for Turkey, which I learned. So she had an even longer travel day with a connecting flight. But yeah, I haven't been to too many hotels, but this breakfast buffet was pretty impressive, I must say. Let's see. So she was actually a breakfast specialist and suggested all sorts of different things, fruits, nuts, cheeses, etc. I tried everything and it was actually really good. So I forgot what this thinly sliced cheese was, but man, I got to find that locally because yeah, it was quite good. But yeah, all sorts of different things, right? Eggs, avocado, assorted cheeses, figs, dates, dried apricots, raisins, pineapple, pumpkin seeds, walnut, cashews, hazelnuts, and all sorts of cool things like this little Portuguese pastry here, which is quite nice as well. But yeah, I also never drank coffee in my life somehow, but I got a little bit peer pressured into trying it. So, I ended up taking a few sips there plain with no milk or sugar. I will say coffee doesn't taste like it smells, but I can see the appeal to its taste. Now, I'm not saying it's bad or good. I actually will think I may try it a little bit more, but yeah, it was an interesting experience there. But within an hour or so, I would say the buffet area was swarmed by Docker captains. It was pretty empty, at 7 a.m. But yeah, once like 8 o'clock started rolling in, people started coming in, and yeah, we had some opportunities to chat with a whole bunch of people there. Now, this sign was also posted in the lobby. This is pretty close to where the buffet was. I know nobody took really a picture of the buffet, so I don't have a picture for that one. But yeah, after that, we all had our breakfast, and now it's like making our way to the conference room for the first event here, which is kind of just like introduction / welcome. So this event actually started off with a bang, doing PowerPoint karaoke as an icebreaker. So I've actually never heard of this before. But, basically Docker had a number of presentation slide decks arranged for later that, employees from Docker were going to present to us. But they also asked us to come up and kind of just give like an ad hoc improvised talk about those slides, but kind of in a, funny way here. So I actually didn't find any photos of this, so this photo is already well into the event, but it kind of gives an idea of at least what this one conference room looked like, right? Presentation slides, speakers up here, we were all just sitting around these tables here. But yeah, a number of folks volunteered and kind of spent a couple of minutes making up some pretty funny scenarios here. Basically 2 captains at a time went up here. I remember Normal was running around the room like a maniac, like an over-the-top inspirational speaker. Maybe some videos or I don't know, something is going to come of that one because there was a professional videographer doing all sorts of things. Maybe Docker will put together that as like a blooper reel or something at some point. But then after that, we did a little bit of speed networking, kind of a tech spin on speed dating. So there was another conference room that had one of those like really big like U-shaped tables there. And we kind of just took turns switching chairs every couple of minutes. This gave a really nice opportunity to meet and chat with a whole bunch of different people. One of the common goals here was to kind of find common tech interests for future collaborations. Like maybe, if 2 people are interested in working with I don't know, Linux networking or something like that, then they can get together, maybe make a video, interview, podcast, whatever it happens to be here. So I think this is a great concept, but the implementation was a little bit tricky to pull off because you can imagine having, 40 people in a room. This gets really loud with a lot of people talking. And, some folks just naturally spoke very softly or had a pretty strong accent since we came from all over the world. So it made it a little bit difficult to hear some folks. We all met probably around 10 people, I would say. I don't know exactly how long the speed networking was, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, a couple minutes each. But fortunately, I was able to make out everything for the most part. But yeah, it was definitely a little bit of a struggle at a time. But I can't really say how to improve this because, part of the appeal, right, is to have easy access to everyone in one room. You don't want to break people up into like 5 rooms or 3 rooms or, 2 conference rooms and a lobby or something like that. But yeah, I don't know, a couple of folks brought up similar issues. But in the end, I would say it was a net win and definitely worth exploring in the future here. So next up, we had this one test containers demo here from Oleg, and he gave us some information about this. Actually, I'm going to have to check it out in more detail because this is something I've never heard of prior to the Docker events here, but he gave us a live demo, and this demo actually, it meant for us also to follow along and see if we can get it running on our machines. But it made me think it actually might be time for me to format my Chromebook, modify to run Linux here because, Gallium OS was awesome like all those years ago, but since then it's no longer maintained. It's been discontinued. So I'm basically stuck running a version of, a Chromebook optimized Xubuntu 18.04, which doesn't even support running modern versions of Docker. So I wasn't able to follow along directly. But Cheatham and I were neighbors for this demo, so we got to share her nice little MacBook over here. And that turned out to be beneficial because we were troubleshooting some of the demo steps, which we did get to run in the end. But it was like kind of a funny little scramble to like install Go and Java and Node and all sorts of other different things there. But yeah, we all got it working in the end, so that was cool. And then after that, it was time for lunch. We ate an early breakfast, like around 7:30, let's say. But yeah, 5-6 hours later, it was about lunchtime. So we all sat in some pretty big lunch tables in the buffet area. I don't think anybody took pictures of it, mainly like 8 to 10 people per table type of thing. Another buffet style, go up, all sorts of interesting things here, right? There's like fish, meat, rice, cheese, bread, vegetables, etc. Yeah, it was nice. I tried all sorts of different things. The only thing I don't remember was these orange, like air quote things. I don't know, it was like a fruit nut combo thing, but yeah, it was kind of nice. After that, it was time for the start of the hack day. And yeah, Docker gave us a couple of different prompts. Cheatham and I decided to do a this or that style Docker themed video, and she posted that one on her YouTube channel. I'm not going to play it like live through in this video, but I'll leave a link to this one in the description or a card for it. I would say it was really fun. So yeah, if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link to that one. But we brainstormed a couple of different choices there and kind of just went to an empty conference room, propped our phone up literally on a water glass, tried to frame it the best we could, and then we just recorded it. So then we found a mobile video editor that made it really easy to add some text labels here and didn't insert any ads into the final rendered video here. I also learned pretty interesting that she also does video courses about Docker and other things as well. That's cool. We both have some video recording experience, so it was natural to kind of like collaborate on something like this. And I have to say, yeah, it was awesome to record. We tried like so many ridiculous things here. But there was actually also a professional videographer who recorded some short sessions with some of us. Yeah, both of us recorded a couple of videos with him. I imagine Docker will post those eventually. I'll link them here once they're available. But yeah, one of them was another this or that style video, and the other one was basically asking questions about what Docker is and like how you would describe it to non-technical people. Like imagine you just met somebody in the lobby in the hotel. That was pretty cool. Again, like I would imagine Docker is going to put that together because, a whole bunch of different captains participated there. But then after that, after the hack day thing, on day 1, we took a nice little boat ride. So we all met in the lobby around 5 p.m. and we took a big bus to the marina for the boat trip. And this was a really nice unexpected surprise. It was there on the agenda, but nobody, at least I didn't know, like really what to expect there. And it was the only time we kind of left the hotel as a group here. So we got on this big, like, I don't know how you want to classify this one, maybe some form of sailboat, but there was like, some rows in the boat there to sit down if you'd like here. But yeah, it was a really nice 2-hour ride on the river, which kind of showcased a bunch of great scenic spots. They also serve snacks like cheese, grapes, crackers, drinks. Here's Belém Tower here on the river and a nice little look at one of the bridges here, which is modeled after the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, it was a really cool trip around the river there for a couple of hours here. And of course, shipping containers were involved here as well, as you can see in the background. Yeah, we're just all hanging out, having a good time. That's all of us like standing around in the boat there. And as far as I know, at least I didn't see that anybody got sick. And the water is pretty calm, but I will admit, it was pretty rocky at the start. Now, Thankfully, I don't really get motion sickness on boats, but it was kind of weird. I remember later that night, like just laying down to sleep, and it kind of felt like the earth was moving, but in a weird way, it was like soothing. It wasn't like problematic there. But yeah, Docker got us there by bus to the marina, but we're kind of on our own there to get back to the hotel. And, where it's about 45-minute walk back to the hotel. You can also take a metro line back up there. But, now it's about 8 p.m. So we kind of all just broke up into these small little groups here and went off in our own directions. And, we ended up just walking back to the hotel, but, we did some stuff along the way here. So Margot, Cheatham, Julian, and Rashid and I, we kind of just walked around chatting about, whatever came up while we enjoyed the scenery. So Julian was giving us a history lesson about certain historic sites as we passed them. However, we soon realized his facts were absolute complete bullshit. So he kind of earned the well-deserved title of like the best worst tour guide in Lisbon. And on the way, we actually did find a clothing vendor who clearly likes some sales scripting here. So we can see Bash there is on the label, or BA and SH, however you want to read that one. But yeah, we saw it and it was pretty cool. But at this point, we're just walking around, going up some roads, and maybe it's like 9 p.m. give or take. And we all had a good lunch earlier in the day, but most of us were getting a little bit hungry. So, we're walking around. We also met up with Don, his wife, Michael, and Julianne, who is different than Julianne, by the way. We all decided to try some pizza in Portugal and found a place that had an open table for all of us, right? There was like, I don't know exactly how many, maybe 8, 9 people, something like that. But most of us ordered personal pizzas of different types. So Cheatham and I weren't super hungry, so we decided to split one. And we were feeling a little crazy, so why not? Pineapple and mushrooms. And the presentation, let's just say, was interesting. As you can see, there's a missing half there because they served each of us a half one there. But yeah, Julian ordered a pitcher of sangria, which I actually never had before. I will say thank you for picking that one up. Although I am not so much a fan of drinking wine, I am happy to have had a little bit just to have an opportunity to try it. Now, the pizza was interesting. Let's just say it was about average. Most of us rated it about 6 or 10. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't amazing. It was just a pizza, basically. And, Marco is from Italy, so we asked his opinion. And he was a really nice guy about it. Hey, it was pizza. But eventually, when we left the restaurant, yeah, he gave it like basically a hard 2 out of 10. But still, very enjoyable experience. It's about the company. The food is basically just a side effect there. But it was interesting too, since, we're all from different countries here, we actually had a little chance to look at each other's physical money. Now, we all paid with cards or whatever, but like up until this trip, I've actually never seen currency in real life, except maybe for a couple of pesos here or there, right? A couple different coins I may have seen over the years. But, I did pick up 50 euros before the trip in cash, which is pretty cool. But Cheatham showed us some money from Turkey, which was actually even cooler. I don't think anybody got a picture of that one, but feel free to Google on what their money looks like. It's super interesting. Like the president's even like signed the currency, which I thought was cool. And I actually had a US quarter, just happened to have that in my wallet. So I gave that to her as a souvenir. But it's a really good example of just like how common something is for someone, but so unique and interesting for someone else. I remember that quarter was getting passed around the table. Like Marco was like investigating it with like a microscope, like major intensity and interest, like it came from like an alien spaceship. So I don't blame him though, because I remember when I got the euros, I spent like a minute just like investigating them and it was pretty cool. But yeah, after dinner, we walked our way back up to the hotel. And then that was it for the night here. So then, yeah, the real event day 2 is technically like, really day 4 of the experience from a human being. But, like the first day, we started eating breakfast at about 7. We both had similar things as the first day, just more assorted fruits, all sorts of different things. But yeah, it was actually interesting then. So one of the first things we did that day, once we got to the conference room, was this idea here where before the summit, Alba, she works for Docker, asked if anyone wanted to do a little bit of talking about some contract work. So Cheatham, Julian, Rashid, and I volunteered to do that. So there was no slides needed. Basically, the expectation was, go up and chat for a few minutes about a couple topics. And the idea is like, top 10 things I wish I knew before starting in consulting. And, the idea is like 4 or 5 people go up, talk about 2 or 3 things. And before you know it, you have 10 things. So the 2 topics I picked were like charging based on the value you provide and also putting yourself in a position to be labeled as the problem solver. Now, it is funny. I've recorded so many unscripted YouTube videos, 100 different podcast episodes with different guests talking about whatever, just live, like no real major agenda except for like high-level bullet points here. But I've still never have given a talk in front of a live audience here. I've done a few online talks, but that's really just not the same at all. But I figured now would be a great time for some personal growth. And yeah, this was the perfect chance. Sure, it was being recorded, but it was for a couple of minutes about topics I knew inside and out. And at this point, everyone in the room felt pretty friendly, right? Like the stakes are pretty low here. Now, I didn't plan anything anything other than writing these 2 bullet points out because, we wanted to put those into a private group chat in Slack there for everybody coming up there because we want to make sure we all talk about different topics here. But yeah, one of the themes of this trip for me was just like avoid overthinking, just go and do it. So, here's a little shot. I think Cheetah may have taken this one because we were sitting over here, but yeah, we were just talking about whatever. I think Rashid was talking now, so we're all kind of looking at him a little bit here. But yeah, I just trusted that my brain would come up with something, and it kind of did. It's hard to say like when you're up there, like what your memory is, but like I don't feel like I did amazing, but I also don't think I tanked it. I think the most important thing there, at least for me, was there was no nervousness there at all. So, standing up there, cameras, 40 people in the room, zero effect on my heart rate, I would say. And I don't think it would have made a difference if there was like 40 or 400 or 4,000 people in there. I guess it's all about just how confident you are in the material that you're talking about there. But yeah, I actually hope Docker does a lot more things like this because it's a really good activity to get people used to speaking in front of a live group. I'll certainly do it again if given an opportunity here. And I will say this though, certain areas of your brain kind of shut down in situations like this. So Alba had our Slack DM open on her laptop. She's standing over here, but her laptop is up there on the stand there. And, I tried scrolling down to see mine for the second bullet point. And, I just tried to use my finger to scroll down. And like in my defense, I don't really use laptops. I have a workstation, like my desktop machine that I use here. So I don't use trackpads a lot, but like I know how they work. And like, I don't know, my brain was just too focused on being up there to solve like that extremely complex task of like scrolling down in a Slack chat. But Cheatham unfortunately sat this one out here. She was feeling a little bit under the weather. Now you can imagine like being sick, going up in front of everyone, talking about whatever, and then also needing to convert Turkish to English in real time. That's a lot to ask because, she's not a native English speaker here. And turns out though, a number of folks had a sore throat, sniffling was going on. And yeah, overall that day, quite a few folks were feeling pretty sick here. Fortunately, I didn't get sick the whole trip that much. I mean, I ended up getting a really mild sore throat for a couple of days. And also my nose was running just a little bit about a week later. But yeah, that quickly went away, and thankfully it didn't impact the trip really at all there. But yeah, after this, another set of captains came up. I don't have a screenshot or a picture of that one, talking about other topics as well. Then we had a call about a product overview. This one is under NDA, can't really chat too much about it, but it was more just a technical talk about things coming up. So exciting times ahead. Keep a lookout for things from Docker in the future. And then after that, we had a product feedback session, which is really cool. So we kind of broke up into these like self-regulated teams of 5 or 4 or 5 on our own there and came up with ways to improve Docker's ecosystem of tools and services. So, I really like this event, kind of got us working together as a group to work towards a common goal while having a time constraint of like 45 minutes or whatever it was. We had certain folks on the team perform specific tasks, like making sure we're on pace to complete it, dictating notes, kind of figuring out like as a group, what do we want to work on? So our team was Don, Cheatham, Camila, Rosanna, and myself. I'm basing that on a visual scene I have in my head where Don was sitting across from me. I was sitting next to Cheatham. Camila was on her right. Rosanna was at the end of the table. I hope that's right. I'm actually wrote this right before I recorded the video, and this is like already 3 weeks after the event because, I went on that personal trip afterwards. So yeah, but I'm pretty sure that was that. And like every team that broke out kind of get to name each other. So we chose Flock of Seagulls. But yeah, every team basically had its own spreadsheet with all the details there. And we kind of gave a summary of our findings at the end. And, in the end, after all the teams gave feedback, this may result in a few changes to some of Docker's offerings. So we'll see what happens there. But also, yeah, after that, Eva was traveling the world for quite a few years, and I think she may have came directly from Korea right to here, but, she brought us a bag of treats. So she positioned it as kind of like a grab bag where, we were all just like walking around the conference room in little groups, chatting about whatever, and she kind of just let us like pick something from the bag. Now, I didn't take a picture of it, but I got some type of, I don't know, like Korean candy corn. It was interesting. It was like sweet and salty. It was one of those things where it wasn't bad. Like I wouldn't want to eat the whole entire bag. But it wasn't huge. Like you could have definitely eaten the whole thing. But yeah, that had a very unique taste. Actually, it was pretty good. So yeah, it was interesting. And then after that, we kind of just went for lunch again at the hotel buffet. Beyond that, some of us shared some of the different candies that we got there, and that was nice. And then there was Korean Candies Part 2. So Eva was standing around again. She had another bag there of goodies there after lunch. We're back in the conference room. Now, we don't have dedicated pictures of what we got, but here's a picture of Cheatham and I, and she actually got a stuffed animal here, which you can see in front of the laptop, and I ended up getting Korean instant noodles, which is in front of the 2 water cups here on the right with the green lid. That's what we can see over here. Yeah, so that was cool. I haven't had instant ramen in a really long time, but I was actually looking forward to trying these things out. Like I remember picking it out of the bag, like this big thing, and I'm like saying out loud to myself, like, this is great. Like I like instant noodles. Like I can't wait to try them out. But I'm proudly showing it to at least a couple of people, whoever was around the bag there. But there's a problem. A couple hours later, I actually learned it was a collagen face mask, and that second bag of goodies, it wasn't candy, it wasn't food. Instead, it was actually makeup and like things mostly aimed at the women of the group. So after I learned when I picked it up, like Eva was just standing there in total silence with like a dead straight face thinking like, Nick must really like keeping his face clean. So I can't believe nobody corrected me on the spot. Freaking Eva, thanks. So I spent like half the day excited to try noodles either at home or maybe one of the hotels later on in the trip if it happened to have a microwave. And the messed up thing though, like if nobody actually told me that and I opened it and didn't see noodles, I would have maybe thought like maybe it was like seaweed or something edible, and I probably would have tried eating it anyways. I don't even know what actually the inside of it looks like because I gave it to Cheatham and she kind of saved it for home. So I hope it was nice. Yeah, send me a picture later if you opened it. But seriously, look at the above picture here. Does that not look like instant noodles? I mean, there was like Korean words everywhere. Now, in my defense, like when I looked at the label a little more closely, it did say freaking collagen face mask in English, but I don't know. That's a great reminder of internal bias here, right? The first bag was snacks. I was absolutely convinced the second bag was too. I don't know why her stuffed animal didn't register as a non-food item. My brain completely filtered it out. But the really messed up thing is later on in the trip, we're talking like a week and a half later or whatever, I went to one of the hotels and they left this nice little thing next to some bottled water on a desk. And I'm like, wow, that's so nice of them to leave complimentary Portuguese white chocolate. But no, it's actually soap. So I don't know. Apparently I have a problem with not reading labels and easily jumping to incorrect conclusions. But yeah, that was kind of fun. But yeah, after that, we had another hack day session here. And this was a very video heavy session, which was actually a lot of fun here. So first, the professional videographer was recording all sorts of different things, providing information like what our name is, like what Docker is to us, and like how it helps us. So Cheatham and I both did this along with quite a few other different captains. We kind of just made our way over to him recording the videos whenever he had an open slot there. And after that, Cheatham and I did another this or that video with the videographer. This one was only a couple of minutes. It was all set up, ready to go, where we just needed to show up, do a couple of things real quick, and get out. It was much different than the video we made the prior day before. It was also a lot of fun. This video isn't posted yet, but the idea is it's going to include a whole bunch of different shots from all the different captains here who participated. I'll update this post when it's available. Lastly, Cheatham and I wanted to plan a multi-captain video around the idea of like what's in your tech stack. This is one of the prompts provided by Docker to make a video on. So we kind of planned it out with the idea that we'll find 10 or so captains and ask them each, like, what would they use for one component of their tech stack to take something like a product from software or from development to production. For example, what programming language, database, cloud provider, logging solution, all things like this. So Cheatham went down the line and asked everybody for the answer here. You can see we're all lined up here. She walked to everybody, prompting them for their answers there. And it was really cool. So huge shout out to her here. She had to say and remember a lot. She did all of that with like minimal to no preparation and didn't even have to look at her notes once. So really nice one. And all things considered, I think it went really smooth. I tend to be a perfectionist, but this was a nice change of pace to see how quickly something can actually come together and get produced. And we're not even talking about one person here. This is a whole room of captains here moving towards something that actually went pretty quickly, all things considered. So as for like a rough timeline, Cheatham and I figured out what we wanted to ask for maybe 10 or 15 minutes ahead of time. Then we started to think about like who we wanted to ask for each of the prompts there. But that really quickly transformed into finding anyone available because, we had to work within the time constraints of the videographer, the Docker events, like, there was all sorts of other variables that we had to account for. Now, before we knew it, we were running around asking captains if they wanted to be in the video. Well, we kind of herded everybody into an empty room here, and then we explained the idea. And I'll post a real video here once it's available. I mentioned the real video because, while we were getting everyone and everything together, Oleg wanted to have some fun here. So we recorded a behind the scenes edition, which he put up on his channel. I'll leave a link to this one in the description if you want to check it out. If you do watch it, we take ourselves very seriously, apparently. But yeah, after that, that hack session was over. It was basically time to wrap the event up. So the event ended around 5 with a closing presentation. Some of us said goodbye in case we didn't really get a chance to see each other the next day, because, some folks might be leaving at like 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning or some crazy hours like that. We also had a chance to get one last farewell picture here as a group. You can see everybody. We may or may not be behind some closed gate in the hotel to be determined potentially. But after that, it was time to explore Lisbon for our last night. So Cheetah mentioned that she researched a few things here and she wanted to check out Bellum Tower as well as a monastery that was next to it. And it sounded great to me because I also had those as bullet points for when I was looking for things to do in Lisbon. At this point, I did activate my eSIM, so I was finally able to use the internet away from the hotel. And we would definitely need that because it's actually quite involved a little bit to get there. There's a lot of walking and taking a train. So we actually asked if anybody wanted to join us. Some folks wanted to go out to eat more closer to the hotel. Others wanted to swim in the hotel pool or maybe find some more active nightlife activities. But Julian was up for it. So the three of us left the hotel, like whatever it was, maybe around 5:30 here. And for reference, Google Maps says it's about a 2-hour walk, but you can cut that down to 1 hour with the train. So, our hotel's here. You can technically take a metro down here if you wanted, but, we walk that. And then you can also take a train from about here, roughly, to Belém Tower. But, we decided to kind of play it by ear and kind of walk until we got tired of walking. And it's about a 45-minute down to the river walk from, this way here. And there's multiple train stops, right, that lead to Belém Tower. And we had a really enjoyable walk down the river. We even stumbled upon a live band, which is pretty cool. They were just there. I don't know what the event was for, but a lot of people were just forming around there. And one of our photos actually got accidentally or almost perfectly photobombed by a pigeon here. We can see that was pretty cool. And speaking of pigeons, though, after I got home, one of my friends asked me, what was the most unexpected sound you heard during the trip? And for me, it was definitely the pigeons. I don't know. They have an accent compared to New York, I swear. In my mind, the pigeons have a French accent, but I can't explain why it sounds French, but it absolutely does. You will know it when you hear it if you ever go there, compared to at least New York's pigeons. Now, we decided to keep walking and only took the train when we noticed that the stops were quite far. We wanted to make sure that we actually got a chance to see the tower and monastery with enough daylight to see them. Although I will say, the sun sets, I don't know when it was, maybe 9 o'clock. It sets reasonably late there. It was even later in Spain as well, but it's a story for another time. But as we were walking around, we saw all sorts of different cool things here. We went through a little park and just saw this building out in the middle of nowhere in a little park. And, we tried to look it up a little bit. It may have originated from Thailand. But then again, Julian looked it up, and if you remember, he was our best worst tour guide there. So there's no pictures of the train, but that was also a fun experience. After we were walking for a little bit, we decided to enter a little small train station there that only had a kiosk to buy the tickets. So we kind of had to figure that out and also make sure we got on the right track because that train goes, both east and west. So it goes in both directions. There's 2 different tracks. Got to get on the right one. So I'm actually not used to using trains, especially not in Europe. But we each bought our tickets there one way, and it turned out to actually be valid both ways. So it seems that tickets validity is based on a timer, not so much taking one specific trip, like a one-way versus 2-way ticket. There was also a little machine there to check to see if it was valid. It was all good, so that was quite nice here. But we arrived at the Belém Tower train station here and found the tower. Unfortunately, it was a little bit late. I think it was after 7. I'm pretty sure that monastery and tower both closed around 6, whatever it happens to be. But it actually turned out to be pretty nice here because it was really empty. I actually ended up coming back here later on my own, and it was just swarmed with people. So I think our experience was kind of unique. But I don't know. None of us took a picture at the time of the tower. So this picture that you're about to see here, I actually took later on, a week and a half later, whenever it was. That's why it's so cloudy versus not cloudy around here. But that's the Belém Tower. It was pretty cool. It's not a massive thing, but it was very interesting architecture there. But after that, we actually went to Belém's famous pastry shop. Now, the wait there was over an hour to sit down, but thankfully you can go to a different line to buy their little pastries and eat them outside. That line took 2 minutes. Here's Cheatham ordering us a nice sleeve of 3 of them to share. And here they are. So they came in a sleeve of 3, and man, they were really, really, really good. So if other captains are reading this, there was a smaller version of this one in the hotel, but those, I'm not going to say they were stale, but they weren't fresh. These were really fresh, really warm. There's cinnamon that you can put on top. You got separate packages for that. They were really, really good. And I definitely ate 1, potentially 2 of them when they came back on my own, and it was worth it. But Julian also tried some type of donut that had custard in the middle. He kind of gave us a pull of it. Also, it was good. I can definitely see why this bakery is so popular. They have some really good stuff there. But after that pre-dinner snack, we made our way over to the monastery, which really wasn't that much further away from the pastries. I can't remember exactly, 5 or 10 minute walk. It was basically right around the corner. But this monastery is pretty cool. It was really huge, and there was so much intricate detail and on the walls and the towers there. You can see there's some big doors. I was kind of just looking up there. To think someone just went up there and started carving this stuff out hundreds of years ago, and it's still there. It's pretty remarkable, actually. And they also had a really well-kept garden that we passed through as well. Here you can see a semi-Docker themed anchor there. It was really nice. And then after that, we decided to basically walk back to this train station there and then take it closer to the main city area where we kind of just casually walked around until we found a spot to eat dinner. Now, we didn't take any pictures of the actual place itself, but it was starting to get dark out. They had a pretty cool place where you can sit outside. They had fireplaces and other yellow lights there. It was definitely a nice little corner of an area looking out to the town square, but it wasn't super busy, so it was pretty cool. So we ordered quite a few things. Julian went for fried octopus and cuttlefish. Cheatham got some type of meat dish that was really good. And I tried a burger with an egg on top, but I didn't take a picture of that one. But yeah, we all shared a little bit of each of them. There's the fried octopus. There's that meat dish there, which was, yeah, very good. So here's Julian devilishly eating our good friend Dr. Compose. Man, Julian, although I will say we're all pretty guilty because we all tried it. And yeah, it was pretty tasty, I have to say here. But yeah, after that, we kind of just walked our way back up to the hotel. Julian's phone was dying out. It was running on fumes for quite some time there. So I took over navigation. It was a good thing I activated my SIM card there. But yeah, the city was actually really nice at night. We even saw a payphone lurking in the shadows here. Haven't seen a payphone in quite some time. This was actually about like the third or fourth payphone that I saw in Spain and in Lisbon as well, and southern Portugal too. So it's interesting that they're just sitting around there. Yeah, I haven't seen one of these in the US in some time. But yeah, by this time, it's like 11 p.m. So we had a lot of walking, almost like 6 hours there. And there's other captains in the lobby and kind of hung out a little bit. But then, yeah, it was time to end the night. And then, yeah, the last day here, the end, basically at this point, the event is technically over. And it was a travel day out for most folks here, unless they were staying days on their own. So we had our last hotel breakfast and said farewell to a couple of captains who were leaving. After that, Cheatham and I decided to visit a park that, again, was pretty close to the hotel. It was a nice little walk around here, but yeah, Lisbon has a lot of hills and a lot of steps, so be prepared for that if you ever happen to go there. We didn't really stay super long there because Eva mentioned that she's leaving at 11, and we kind of wanted to meet up here. And by the way, this is what the Sheraton Hotel looked like here. Pretty nice tall building here. I happen to be on floor 10. I don't know where that is relative to here, but yeah, it was very, very nice. So I was actually flying out at 3:25 for a domestic flight to Spain, and Cheatham had an international flight an hour later. And for domestic, you can be there 2 hours early, roughly, and international 3. So like our times were actually like almost aligned perfectly to go to the airport together. James also had a flight around the same time. I don't know when it was, but I do know that we all shared an Uber ride to get to there. We actually tried to use Bolt, which is Portugal's alternative to Uber, but for some reason, it never confirmed our ride. Like we tried it a few times. I know James must have tried at least 3 or 4 times on his phone, but it was always just like, we can figure out where we want to go. We got the driver waiting. It's just never confirmed. But Uber worked in like 2 minutes. So yeah, the driver there was actually pretty awesome. So he accommodated for James by finding like a secret entrance to Terminal 1 that had no stairs. And he even drove me down to Terminal 2, which was a decent ways off. I mean, we're talking like, I don't know, 5-7 minutes of just airport roads. Like those crazy loops go over this thing, turn around, make like, 11 loops, and then finally you're there. Although it was too bad that our terminals were split, and I don't know what happened here. I'll remove those dots here. But yeah, both of them were taking international flights, so they were at Terminal 1, whereas I was at Terminal 2. So that basically meant we had to part ways pretty early there. I ended up passing through security and everything else in like 20 minutes. And so I was sitting there for over 2 hours. Here you can see it's not even 2 p.m. yet. And again, my flight was at like 3:25. I remember messaging James on Slack, and I was like, hey, how's it going in Terminal 1? Because Cheatham didn't have any internet, so she wasn't able to look at Slack. And he just described it as organized chaos. So I guess it was pretty crazy there as well. And I did get a chance to see that once the Uber driver dropped us off. There was quite a few lines there, just wrapping around a million different things here. But yeah, on the bright side, I didn't have to think about missing my flight here, which when it comes to airports, I would much rather be a little bit early than late here. But yeah, I just want to say thanks again to Eva, who's on the left here, and Camila is on the right, by the way. She was also on our team when we did those like product review sessions here. But yeah, this is a really cool shot of just when we were on the boat here. So thanks again, Eva, and of course for Fortini and Shannon and everybody else at Docker for putting this together. So there's Fortini and Shannon in the back there. They were the event organizers, and they definitely helped make this a really great experience. So I had the best time here, and I really hope we have another summit. And I hope I wake up one day with another invite to it. So it was really nice and cool to meet everybody that I've seen on Slack and Zoom over the years. I still can't believe I've never went to a live event or DockerCon prior to this. Totally missing out, that's for sure. So here's to next time. And yeah, this is just meta stuff about the video. But with that said, yeah, if you have any comments about this or want to know a little bit more about Lisbon or anything else, I'll do my best to answer the comments in below. Yeah, I just want to thank Docker again for all of that. And with that said, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video.